to me is honestly, I didn't come out here to build my business. I come out here to just to share passion about helping men become better and helping them redefine winning. What winning should be like in our eyes as far as what it is. And it's not wins and losses. It's stepping up and just showing up, and that's a big deal for us. So.
Get ready to tune in to stories of average men striving for greatness, to become the leaders that are needed in their homes, in their career, and their communities. This is the Brotherhood of Fatherhood podcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Scott again on another episode of the Brotherhood of Fatherhood podcast. I've got with me today my friend Jason Barron, and Jason is a man of many talents. We've been connected actually through the fitness world, so we'll probably talk a little bit about fitness, but he's really kind of digging into some really cool coaching stuff. And then we are both really passionate about some things with the way that we live in our world, the way we interact with our world. Yeah. We also share a lot of activities in common. So I'm excited to get this conversation going. But first, make sure if you're a listener of the podcast, you all actually are plugged in either Instagram or Facebook, the Brotherhood of Fatherhood. And you can go find me too. I'm Scott Ramage, and that's pretty simple to find me. It's 2 M's, by the way. And if you see anything about bison or buffaloes, you know you're in the right place. It's a fascination of mine for a very apparent reason. With all of that, Jason, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, brother.
How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. A little allergies, but I'm doing good. Excited to be here.
So where are you located?
I live in Akron, Ohio.
Okay. And do you have like a bad allergy season there?
Yes and no. But this year has been tough for me, but it's hit me the last couple of days. I'm like, of all weeks to hit, I'm doing this podcast, and then it hits. So I may sound a little funky, but we're here.
Yeah. No, it happens. And of course, podcast picks up all of the voice things. So you just got to deal with it as a listener. I don't know if you've ever listened to a lot of podcasts, and it's just like you're always hearing everybody breathing. You're hearing them. I mean, everything. It's like it's just real. Who cares? So yeah, we were kind of introduced in the kind of fitness world, crossing paths. I mean, I know you met my business partner, Josh Price, through Will Hurst, through fitness stuff. And
we got a lot of things that we've crossed paths over the years, dude. Well, we Level Method, dude. You're the one who got me in the Level Method back in the
Yeah, like years back, 3 years, 4 years.
No, it was after COVID. So we jumped in after COVID as kind of a launch point. Okay. So it was 2 years ago. Okay. And then friends of friends, and then a lot of things matched up, the whole 6 degrees of separation thing.
Yeah. Well, you started interacting in the Brotherhood group too, and doing some posts. And I loved it because there was this time when you sent me a post and you're like, hey, or a link. I'd like to put this in there. And of course I watched it. I'm like, heck yeah, it's right up the alley of what I really appreciate that, because some guys will just throw stuff in there like, whoa, wait. I sometimes feel like a never ending moderator pulling stuff out or feedback. So I really appreciate when someone says, hey, can I throw something up there? But that spoke to my mind. I can't quite remember what it was about right now. I should have gone back and reviewed it. It was a video. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I do. I want to say it's probably either a Jordan Peterson thing or...
It wasn't Jordan. Yeah.
A couple guys that I follow that I like as far as my inputs to kind of keep my perspective right. Oh, know what it was, dude? It was 2 pastors talking about... oh man, it was good though. It left an impression.
It was really good. I remember I thought this might rub some guys wrong, but I was like, if it rubs them wrong, like fine, maybe it'll make them think. And I that's really the goal, is to make guys think. So your dad, your husband, tell us a little bit about your family.
I've been married for 15 years. I got 4 beautiful girls. I'm a girl dad for sure, and we kept trying for the boy, but we made girls, so it is what it is. But they're 13, actually 14, 12, 7, and 4, so we're pretty spread out. But it's a busy life, man. I own and operate my own gym. Been doing that for about 10 years now, and I've been training for 20. So I've been in this fitness industry since out of college, and I love it, man. I love what I do. I love the people I get to help. And recently, more so, kind of really getting into the into the parents, into the fathers, into, my lane, my bread and butter, the things that I deal with, the things that I face, things that I struggle with. And much like you, I mean, we even dress the same, dude. It's freaking awesome. But like our perspective, our
We're wearing the
passions
same color shirt.
is to help men live better, to do this
Yeah.
thing better. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. I follow, what you write, and I pay attention. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. That feels like it came right out of my head. I just wasn't as eloquent as putting it out on paper or on the computer or whatever. We all have our moments, right? Like when we're feeling something. And then recently you are a level 1 enlisted coach, which
Correct.
I've gone through as well.
Yeah.
I actually got shut down on level 2 because I got COVID, and it just crushed me. And we were launching our business, and I'm like, I can't finish this in good faith. I got through so far, but boy, I bet, how was your journey in that? So if you guys don't know, you probably don't, uh it's story work. So it's basically a way for you, each person, and for guys like us that went through it, to help other people go through some of their history, kind of what's kind of plugging
Yeah.
up their head, what's really getting them thinking maybe incorrectly. And there's just so many stories that we've lived, and we've kind of rewritten them our own way, or we wrote them wrong in our brain the own wrong way. You can correct me, you're fresher on this. And revisiting a lot of the things that really are holding us back, and rewriting those stories. And I'll tell you what, Jason, like for me, I had so much breakthrough after going through that coaching course. Like it was insane.
Yeah, it was really good. Actually, the journey for me actually started with COVID, man. Like going through
Oh
as a
wow.
business owner, like everyone else did, just surviving it and getting through it, and just kind of coming out of that with a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and started doing
Mm-hmm.
really deep diving into storytelling and the story that we live, the stories that we're telling about ourselves. And that concept it came out of COVID. I started diving into it, started doing some men's groups on it, kind of started leading it, and then through different podcasts I listened to, stumbled across the Enlisted program, um, and Mark Ingram and what he was doing. I'm like, this is exactly what I've been doing, but just, the professional version of it, someone who's a little more skilled in
Right.
it. And words matter. And I've always believed that. I've always believed that words matter. The power of life and death is found in the words that we use. And here's a system that we can use now to help people understand that process, that you and I, we are living out the story that we're telling ourselves. We're always talking to ourselves all the time, whether we want to admit it or not. Like we're always
Right.
constantly talking to ourselves. But what is that saying? And then for me, as a CrossFit guy and as a coach, I'm like, all right, what if like it started with this? It started with what are like the elite coaches doing with like the CrossFit Games athletes, like the top of the spear? What are they
Mm-hmm.
doing? And what can I take from them to help everyday folks, like you and me, like moms and dads? What does it make some athletes that we remember, the Olympians of our past growing up, people that we remember name wise, what did they do differently than the people they competed against? Because they're all doing the same stuff training wise. Like they're not doing some magical workout that no one else is doing. Like what separates them, sets them apart. And it comes down to language. It comes down to the
Mm-hmm.
mental perspective and the mental game that they're applying. So that kind of really got me into this path of looking at, well, how can I help someone, with this mental conditioning aspect, this power of words. And then obviously I found the Enlisted program, and it was a really good program, and it helped me. Um, for the first time in my life, Scott, I was going through anxiety bouts last year, and I attribute it to
Wow.
whether you want to call it PTSD, but I think I attribute it to going through the COVID stuff and surviving that, and having both pride and guilt that I survived when other gyms like me, or gyms who I consider better than me, didn't get through it. But I was waking up in the middle of the night having anxiety attacks, and I'm like, I've never been through this. This is not who I
Wow.
am. And so that was a couple months prior to the program. You're like, you know what? If I'm going to help people, like I got to be real about what I'm dealing with, and how do I, rewrite my story? How do I fix what I'm going through, and how do I then help people do the same? And it's helped me tons in that process. So yeah, I just finished that about 2 months ago. It's about I think a 12-week course, and
Yeah.
it was worth every penny that I did, and it's given me more ammunition to help. I call it real folks, but non like competitive professional athlete folks, get through life better and change their perspective.
And that's the truth. It's not even something I really thought about until recently, is that these people who we look up to by default in our society, who are, mega athletes, or they're really good at something, we all gloss over the fact that they have really great coaches typically. And they're
Yeah,
not just coaches for their physical well-being or their acting or whatever it is. Why do we look up to these people? Like, some of them are complete dummies, but some of them you're like, wow, how in the world did this person, like, there's so much knowledge coming out. It's because they do stuff like this. They go through that coaching. They pay the price. They have constant mentoring. They have constant people working with them with story work,
yeah,
or really like forming those stories in their head and the words that they're saying to themselves. We just take it for granted. Wow, that person's really talented. They just
right.
came out of the womb knowing
Yeah, they're
how to
gifted.
do
Like
everything.
everyone knows Michael Phelps, right? Like they just think that he
Right.
was just naturally gifted. No, he actually worked at this stuff. He worked at all the
Yeah.
problems that could come up. They actually had a plan for all the problems, and his mental conditioning training, his mental training is what made him a name that we're always going to remember, not just the physical training and the nutrition stuff, which
Right.
all those guys were doing the same stuff. So just that kind of was really inquisitive for me. I really started digging upon that as far as what can I do as a coach
Mm-hmm.
to help people better. And I love it, man. This is fun stuff for me.
Yeah. Well, I just, every day, every single day, I recognize new patterns that I was able to get over through that process. Like, just fear-based stuff, and how I like frame myself as a victim, as opposed to like, I made this choice. It doesn't define me. I think that's one of the biggest things I took away, was like, my issues don't define me, ongoing and past.
Yeah,
Like, I've been mulling around this post for a while, so it's all fresh in my brain. But I am not my issues. Like, that's a story I've told myself for years. Like, I was taken advantage of in this situation, so now I'm a victim. Like, no, no, that was circumstantial, and that doesn't define who I am. And I think there's so much freedom on there. But I also believe, I know from the inner depths of my heart, that 99.99% of the population really struggles with the wrong stories and the wrong words they're telling themselves.
yeah,
And that's why I really love like what you're doing. And I loved going through that process myself. I remember talking to Mark, and he's like, well, you should do it. I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to coach it. He's like, you don't understand, like, you should do this. And so I just took him on his word, and I went through that enlisted coaching certification. And now I just tell people all about it. I'm like, you either need to find a coach, or you need to go do it yourself if you
yeah,
want to if you want to help other people. And I think for me, in the brotherhood, there's enough connection there with enough men. I can do it in an unofficial capacity to a very, very surface level,
yeah,
that hopefully gets somebody to a deep level. But man, I remember I'd never experienced a panic attack or an anxiety attack. And I was in, this was COVID, of course, late COVID. I was flying, and I was in a plane, and I was watching a movie, and a fight scene came on. I don't have a problem with fight scenes. It's like, whatever. It's like, I, like, all of a sudden, and maybe yours are different, but I all of a sudden, like, I noticed sweat had dripped down on the tray in front of me. I'm like, what in the world? I reached up, and I don't have a lot of hair, but my hair was soaking wet. My shirt was wet from, like, in a V shape. And I all of a sudden I couldn't breathe. What is going on? It was the
yeah,
most bizarre thing. And I went immediately into some breathing, because I had been practicing breathing. I'm like, I got to get this under control. I don't want people to think I'm like, I have COVID, because that's kind of in the
right,
midst of
right.
everything going on. And I'm literally visibly soaked. It was the weirdest thing. And I got up, and I walked as discreetly and as quickly to the restroom as I could, and, like, splashed water on my face, and sat back down, and was sitting there going, what in the world just happened? I'm like, I just had, like, an anxiety attack. And my heart was just going off the charts.
I can
But
imagine.
it hit me so fast I didn't even know what was going on. And I think
I think it's more common than
That's not.
I think it's more
What's that?
common than most of us really,
Yeah, that's what I
believe.
was
I
gonna
think
say.
I think a lot
Yeah.
of men go through this, and what I find is that you'll probably experience the same thing because I'm surrounded by women all the time. Is that women are more open to engage in language and communication and sharing of quote unquote their feelings. And this is not what this is. To me, like what I was attracted to was, to your point, the breathing thing. Let's take that for example.
Hmm.
Navy SEALs do this. Like Navy SEALs do box breathing. So the guys that
Yeah.
in literally life and death moments, who are responsible for their own lives, but the lives of their teams, they do breath work in the midst of this to do what? Well, they're taught to dial down emotion so intelligence can go up. Like that is a real thing for them. So I'm like, all right, well, if the best of us are doing it, then there's room for me to learn from it and grow from it. Because typically, I'm a typical guy, like breath work. Here we go, yoga. Like that's just for women. I'm not going to do that stuff. Like we have this natural like resistance to this, feelings and whatever you want to call it to. But what I found is that, man, if the if these high competitive athletes are doing it, I'm watching a lot of these videos from Kobe Bryant, man. They're still on my Instagram feed, and all the work that it takes and his dedication to the process and his perspective on what made him great was his appreciation for understanding language and emotions. Now, men, we're just as emotional as women, but we do it differently. And so I
Hmm.
think a lot of men, and now what, as a gym owner, like the face to face with people, I'm seeing that more and more and more of people. We're dealing with stress and anxiety more than anything else. People might label it as, hey, I want to get in a better shape, or my weight's up, I want to lose some weight. But the underlying cause and underlying thing that people want to change right now is, hey, we're still freaking stressed out as a society, man. We're still like, we got this anxiety piece. So what for me is, what pieces can I help people with and give tangible tactical things in the moment to help dial down the anxiety. So Enlisted for me was a big piece of that, to have a framework. We do this thing called the 4-step stories, where we kind of just write out your story and breathe through it and walk through it. And to me, like there's some real strong, tangible things. Like for me, I didn't say have the sweats when I hit my anxiety, but it always seemed the same time when I'm going to bed, when my mind's kind of relaxed. All of a sudden, like heartbeat goes through the roof, and everything in my life that I love I'm gonna lose, like all of it. I'm lose my house, lose my business, my wife, like everything just started building up pressure. My mind started racing. You get that tunnel vision. It's all you focus in on that. I used to get out of bed, come downstairs, turn on ESPN in the middle of the night just to change my scenario. But I always would do this before that Enlisted program, before any kind of like coaching. I would always say, dude, this is not who I am. This is not who I am. And I freaking yelled that at myself until I got out, changed the room, changed what I was doing, and that helped. But the breath work is something I've always been doing, because as coaches, we get exposed to different training techniques, and the breath work is something that I've always had prior to it. And it's funny how, like, I tell guys on that, and they kind of roll their eyes. I go, no, listen, like, no, Navy SEALs do this crap, dude. Like, they
Hmm.
they appreciate and see the value of breath work because of what it does. Then you start going into the parasympathetic and the flight and flight. You kind of explain it, and they go, okay, that makes sense. But I think what I'm finding is that until you and I, as men, are ready to admit that this is where I'm at, you know what, I maybe I do have, call it a problem, call it things I need to work on. Here's an area that I can improve upon. I like that perspective better because I like words. Here's an area that I can improve upon, opportunity for me to get better. Until we get to that point, you know, it comes in one ear and out the other. There's no like real, you know, rubber hit the road movement on this thing. But there is tons that we can do as men to become better. And here's one thing, that a phrase that I recently have learned in one of the audiobooks and things that I do a lot of reading on this topic of men. And a couple books that I love, It Takes What It Takes, Trevor Moawad, Russell Wilson's mental mindset coach. Love his stuff. His dad is like the guru of all the mental conditioning stuff that we go through. Worked for NASA, so read his book. Recommend that highly. Um, the Men That We Need is one that I'm listening to now, and he says in there that men are created to be protectors of the garden. So wherever we go, our job, our responsibility is to provide protection and safety for those around us. Well, I can't do that if I'm like we're going through these problems. If I'm having
Right.
this anxiety or stress and I'm dealing with some stuff, how do I do what I'm created to do better if I'm stuck in my lane? So that's kind of like a day-to-day, week-to-week thing. That's my battle. That's I take that fight on. I love that. I love working with men to do that and to here's your sword and here's how you should use it and here's how we can improve it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've really taken on the love him or hate him, which I actually really like Jordan Peterson, but because he speaks some truths that are just men really need to hear. And I don't know if you listen to the Slaying Dragons Monsters. He has a series, and man, I just
Most of the stuff
really
I
really
find
lean.
on Facebook.
Yeah.
He's in around the bush, dude. He gets right at it.
Yeah. Oh, the dragon slaying, man. My wife was listening to me with that, and she really took to that. And so I'm like, I'm gonna play this up all I can because she's like, I love that you slay dragons for us. And so I'm like, man, and that's I think if the most guys would actually just listen to their wives and have a real honest conversation, they might not want to admit that they are the protector or that they have,
Yeah,
but man, when you really dig into it, that is something very important for her, my wife. And I think for most women is that she feels safe and protected. And here we are experiencing these things. Mine come in the morning. First thing when I get up, I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. And, I get that tunnel. I and I just go in this spin. I'm very fortunate that it happens first thing in the morning because I have developed my routines around attacking that from like every angle possible for me. Anybody who listens knows I get up, I read my affirmations, my short term, my long term goals, I read the Bible, and then I get out and I do a walk where all I'm doing is, for me, gratitude and prayer and
yeah.
devotional. And it's like my brain just whoop, goes into another level, and I'm starting the day. I start the day almost every single day. I'm woken up with a fear, an unrealistic fear, or even at that point, I've learned this thing where I write that fear out. If I'm not breaking it by that mid morning that I've kind of gone through that whole process, I'll write out like, okay, my business is going to fold. This is real.
Yeah,
What if everybody leaves tomorrow? On a subscription based business, you worry about that stuff. What if
yeah.
all my employees just say, have a coup and
Well,
say, see you later? That stuff is real to me. So I'll write it out. Business fails tomorrow. What's the worst thing that can happen? Well, I don't have income. Okay, then what? Well, I can borrow for a bit. Okay, then what? Well, I'll eventually pay it off. Okay, so what's the big deal? Like, you,
yeah,
I write that like the worst case scenario down. I'm like, well, I mean, even if I have it, my brain immediately goes to, oh yeah, I can stand up another business in a couple weeks. Oh yeah, I could go get a job here or there. And my brain automatically starts to go to the solutions and like, okay, well that fear's stupid because it doesn't really matter. I'll kick back. Sure, there's a little setback, but I feel fortunate because they hit me in the morning. It sucks, but just hearing you talk, I'm like, okay, yeah, I am experiencing these little, I don't know if they're panic attack or anxiety attacks almost every morning where these little things come up, but I have these
yeah.
tools and box breathing's huge for me. It's a great transitional tool as well. But I mean, it's like, do not feed your mind that vitamin. That is a deadly vitamin.
Well, here's
So,
my perspective on it because I think this is real for a lot of people. Is that what if your brain is healing? So it's interesting that
mm,
when we do it. So it's believed that we have two main access points to our subconscious. So our subconscious is where the story lies that we tell ourselves. So picture it as you're the narrator and the author of your story, and also the main character. You play all three parts. There's two times of the day that we actually have access to our subconscious. Is last thing at night and the first thing in the morning.
there you go.
So it's interesting that most people have maybe this is my point on it. Maybe we're trying to heal ourselves, or when the mind's the most quiet. I also believe, and I've learned this, that there's a belief that left without direction or focus our minds will naturally gravitate towards worry because it's an element
Yeah.
of either control over life or just how we're wired or natured as people to protect, just against, death and dying and being attacked. So whatever. Um, so we have this natural tendency, if I'm not focused, to gravitate towards worry. But then the last thing at night and the first thing in the morning is the two times that we actually can have access to the subconscious. So we actually use this. So um, Benjamin Hardy's the guy that I follow. He does this trick that we put in all our programs. Um, we call it the bookends of the day. We do our 3 wins. So you do 3 wins in the evening. What 3 things did you do today that you're proud of on purpose? And then you share them with someone. And what I learned from that Enlisted program is don't call it journaling because journaling's permanent. Call it drafting. Drafting takes on a whole different element and perspective in our head. Same thing with your stories. Your stories is drafted. It's not set in stone. So we can change it. We can manipulate it. We can change it. What's going on. But last thing at night, you do 3 wins. All right. It could be more at the night. All the things that I accomplished today that I'm proud of that I did, but at least 3. All right. Then also you share what are 3 things I want to do tomorrow? What 3 things do I want to accomplish tomorrow? Not more than 3, because more than 3 you have none. So it can be 1, 2, or 3 things at night. What am I want to do tomorrow? You write those down. You draft those. You go to bed. That drafting, that process, whatever you do the last half hour of your day imprints on your personality. And that was really key for me. I learned that. I go, man, that's a powerful thing then. What's the last thing that most people do during their day? They're going to be either on social media or watching TV. And what do most men do when they watch TV? Movies or typically news. So I learned then from Trevor Moawad, that mindset coach to Russell Wilson, and oh, by the way, all the national champions, Clemson, Georgia. He worked with all these high professional athletes and programs. He did the mindset coaching for them so that they would become champions. So this guy knows his stuff. He says, the allergies, I lost my train of thought. 3 wins in the last day. Write them down. Where was I going, Scott? I had it, man.
I don't know. It's so good. I was like,
3
I was
wins.
actually taking
3
notes.
wins. More than 3 wins, you have nothing. Oh, it was beautiful. Stop doing dumb stuff is what Trevor Moawad typically says. So anyways, I'll come back to it. It'll come back to me. We do this in our programs. Literally, I have everyone in any nutrition program, any betterment program, we have them do the 3 wins at night, 3 wins in the morning, draft it. And then that imprinting thing happens while we sleep. Wake up the next day, and whether someone like you who just spends some time in the morning when our brain power is at its highest, we let what comes out of that. What happens out of that drafting process of me focusing in on the wins. So 3 wins tomorrow, and that's it. What do I want to accomplish? And what I found is a way for me to rewrite and rewire that storyteller that's in my head, whether you picture Morgan Freeman or whatever is telling your story. Like there's ways that we can tactically go in and reword it so that I have movement in my life towards living a better future. I'm a big believer in this piece. I believe that what are we chasing? So I'm going to go on a tangent here, so cut me off if you have to. Here's some things. I don't believe in setting goals in the sense that when we set a goal, even when we write it down or establish it, we have a dopamine hit from it. Okay. So look at like tactical places, how we operate as people. If I write out a goal, there's already a element of dopamine hit that I've accomplished it just by writing it out. So what I try to do in my understanding of words matter, I'm like, all right, instead of saying what goals do you want, who am I trying to become? So what person are you trying to become? So this, again, another principle from Benjamin Hardy. I'll give him the credit. He says personalities should not come from who we've been. Our personalities should come from who we're trying to become. Most people don't do that. Why? Because I do this stuff and I wasn't doing it. Like I spent my life studying this stuff, how to help people, and I wasn't understanding doing this stuff. So I guarantee the average Joe is not spending time thinking about, man, what do I want to become? Who am I trying to be? Ultimately, I've learned this, 20, 25 years ago. You are today who you wanted to be. So I'm the problems and the successes and where I'm at in life is what that was in my head. That was the clear destination in my head. Well, let's just simply spend some time maybe redefining where that should be for you. What man are you trying to become? What are you chasing? And in that is going to be found some answers, and then we can do some deep dive as far as doing that. But this idea of mental conditioning and mental work is a key missing element for tons of men. I don't care what industry you're in, I don't care how successful you're in. Doing the work matters. And what I learned then, my last point, from Kobe Bryant and all his videos, he says, listen, winning, you can put success to that. Winning doesn't care. Winning doesn't care how much effort you put in, how much work you did, how bad you want it. I was watching the home run derby a couple weeks ago, and the guy who won it is like, I deserve this. I put so much work into it. And the guy's like 23, 22 years of age. I'm like, dude, everyone says that. We've worked so hard, and like, it's winning is not based on. This is Michael Jordan's trainer. I want to say Tim Floyd. That might not be his name. But he says this, and he wrote a book on winning. Winning doesn't owe you anything. Okay. So in Kobe Bryant's messages, he always says, listen, I got to wake up tomorrow and do the same stuff regardless. Whether I win or lose, I still have to wake up tomorrow and do the journey. I have to do the work. No matter what, I have to show up and do the work. Now, there's other things that outside of my control that may dictate whether I win or not win. Doesn't matter upon my passions or my desire for winning or success, whatever my thing is. The work has to be there regardless. So I'm like, all right, we got to do the work. I got to show up and do the work. And what I love about the things that you've created and put out for this brotherhood is, hey, there's a lot of things that here's the work that we should be doing, man. Here's the things that you and I should be doing daily in order to have a ticket into the game of having a chance to win. And regardless of our feelings, regardless of the outcome of that day, wake up tomorrow, do it better, face the storm. I love that into the storm mantra, because it's facing the storm versus running away from it. But a lot of men, I think, don't understand the things that we see, Scott, in the sense of how to be successful with life's challenges, because no one taught them. They didn't have a mentor or a coach or a father figure telling you, this is how you become a better man. This is how we do it. It's left up to other influences that have pulled them into, hey, if I don't get my way right away, I'm going to throw a fit like a 2-year-old, stomp my feet, and then go do something else. So I've been really grateful ever since COVID, really been pressed on, what am I doing here? How can I increase my impact on society and my legacy of people around me? And I've been doing nutrition and coaching and training for 20 plus years, and it's still part of the work. It has to be there. It's part of the ingredients. But where the rubber hits the road right now, and I'm telling you, man, is this thing about anxiety and stress. And it comes down to identity, of not knowing who they are, and always looking, to your point, looking upon my past experiences. I'm leaving it up to that to define me versus no. Let's look a forward projection of who you're trying to become. Because if you keep looking backwards, you're always going to be there. You're always going to be stuck in that zone of recycling what you've always been, because you're having that as your destination in the forefront of your mind. So long-winded, but that to me, it speaks to, I think, a lot of things, that the work that you and Josh have done in the brotherhood. Why I got pulled into, why I love it, is this desire to, hey, let's be real men. Here's the challenges we face. Here's what we should be doing. And if you're not doing it, dude, buck up, man. Let's go and do the work, and stop relying upon your feelings to guide you on this stuff.
Yeah. Man, I mean, there's so much.
So much there. I know.
There's so much there. And I look through the lens of social media, through the lens of observation. I observe the men. I would say no one take this weird. It's an obsession. Like, I'm out in public and I'm watching how men are responding to their family. I'm watching how men are responding to their wives. I'm watching how they're responding to the stimulus around them, and how they carry themselves. And I'm like, men are failing. And it's just this overarching thing. And I've had situations where I've been in actual physical groups with other couples, and I can't stay in there. I'm like, honey, these men have no they just have no intention of moving themselves into a better place. I want to be around them and influence them, and they're just like, in the clouds, like just
Yeah.
absolutely in the
Just
clouds. And I
going
think
through
that
life. Just,
that
yeah.
represents 90% of the men right now. And I told my wife actually redefined this. I think I said this in the last podcast. She redefined it. She said, "Hey, I went to the post office today, and I was looking around, and there's a lot of guys in there, but there weren't any men in there." And she goes, "Thank you for being a man." And I think my wife isn't, she's very, very driven. She's very professionally driven. She's self motivated. She would be the first one early on in our marriage. I don't need him. I love him. I need him, but I don't need him,
Yeah.
as a protector. And now she's like, we're missing men in this world. Guys are everywhere. Men are very sparse. And I
Yeah.
think that's true. And
I like the
it's
perspective that you
disheartening.
said there, because I think as guys, women have always been a part of our life. Like the attraction of a woman we want. And I've learned recently that a better way to define the lens that they see us through, and the lens they see us through is through the lens of safety and protection. So it doesn't matter how big your biceps are, how big your bank account is, if you have a six pack or you're overweight. That doesn't matter too much as them, because are they viewing you through the lens of protection and safety? If they are, you can be who you are. That's why I always see like the
Mm-hmm.
supermodels with the guys who are like, how the heck did he get her? Because that guy provides the safety and the protection for that woman in a very honest and real way. So I love that, dude, because I think if we can gain that perspective as men, it changes the game. It changes how I'm trying, like how I even interact with my own wife. What does she need from me? She needs me to do this, this, and this. She needs me to protect and serve and keep her safe. Well, how does that work? Well, that works with me doing the thing that she asked me to do. Hey, can you go out and pick up the hose for me? There's an element of safety and protection there, because if I'm not willing to do the small things for her, well, will I be here for her in the big things? That's a part of how women perspective on things. Now, where we look at women, are they attractive? Are they smart? We have other things that we look at from our end to women as far as our attraction, but their attraction to us is found in that element of protection and service. And I don't think guys get it. I really don't. And here's why. Here's my truth. I think because you look at news media, social media, and then even into music, that stuff is based upon creating fear. Like, so I teach this. I say, hey, there's three currencies that we live on. Money obviously is one. Clearly we know that. But the other two currencies that we live on is attention and energy. So what we see a lot of times now, I think COVID kind of pulled it out, or maybe highlight. I think it's always been there, but um, mental currency, mental fatigue, decision fatigue. We get this a lot now, and social media, news media, they're predicated upon fear. They're predicated upon your buying your attention, and I can get your attention if I make you afraid. And that's what it is. And it goes into both camps. If you're a Republican, you're going to watch Republican stuff. It's going to make you fearful. Democrat, you're going to watch Democrat. It's designed by nature to do this. So this is what Trevor Moawad, his dad was the king of mental conditioning. So this guy put his stuff to his test. Here's the guy who is hired and paid thousands upon dollars to help national champions and national winners to do what they need to do. So he goes, all right, put yourself to the test. Here's a guy who knows it. He's the genius in it, and he did for 30 days the opposite of what he taught. So he ate fast food, which we know is empty. He watched news media, social media, and he listened to country music. I don't know why country music's up there, but I think typical country music, maybe it's changed a little bit, but it's more about like, I lost my wife, I lost my dog, I lost my truck, blah blah blah. So he did that for every day, consistently. Listened to hard rock, yelling. Like, he didn't last a month. Here's a guy who lives this stuff, who teaches it, who knows it better than anybody. He didn't last a month doing the things that most people do daily, right? So the last thing we mostly do in the evening, we scroll social media, or we watch the news, or we're putting something into us that is going to create fear and anxiety. Well, no wonder why we're freaking out, and we have all this stress and anxiety, because that's what we're putting in. But we get this when it comes to people who exercise. We get this when it comes to like eating better, right? So yeah, fast food or processed food is crap. It's not going to give you the same amount of intake as a good protein, a good, vegetable kind of thing. Great. But what I find is that what most men struggle with is maybe because of fear of emotion, whatever you want to call it. Typically, we're fearful of emotion or having emotions, what are showing being seen as weak. We feel that showing emotion is a sign of weakness. No, dude. Like understand, like there's work that we can do to make you more mentally tough. I wear this grit hat on purpose. I had it made because grit means something to a lot of men. And to your point,
Mm-hmm.
men who want to live better, men who care about who they are and becoming better, grit is a part of the character makeup of men like that. Grit tells me I need to work on what's coming into my body, not just some nutritional what I'm eating, but what I'm letting in from a mental perspective, because it's costing me my three currencies: my money, my time, and my effort. It's robbing me of those things if I'm not paying attention to it. Why would I not want to do it? Again, I go back to professional athletes who their careers depend upon performance. What are they doing to heighten and sharpen their performance from guys who just play in the NBA to a Kobe Bryant? It's the work that he did and the diligence and the care he took on what he was thinking about and how he viewed fear and anxiety and stress and success. He did work on his mental game, not just simply going in the gym and shooting 1,000 shots or relying upon his athleticism. So it's caring. I think maybe that's the kind of the crux of today's call. Do you care about who you are and do you care about getting better? Because if you don't, okay, then you don't. Great. Well, wish you luck. But if you do, hey, man, there's some things that we can do to really better ourselves and create a future that's bright and hopeful and something that we look forward to, which, dude, a lot of people struggle with hope and a better tomorrow because we've been conditioned through the government, news media, this fear based stuff that we're exposed to. COVID went wild with it. To your point, like we're still nervous about coughing in public, like, because no,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm like, so that element of fear is still over everybody because of the unknown and things were changing and unbeknownst to us kind of thing. So I think you're nailing it, dude. I think we're right on point with this process of fear and anxiety and what men are trying and should become in our lives.
Yeah. The other angle, well, you may have hit on this, is what I would call apathy. And you kind of hit on it earlier. These guys that they're living numb. I would say there's a high percentage of men living numb. And when I talk about like, do this to have a better life, do this to have a better marriage, do this to have a better, family life, they don't, it is falling on deaf ears. And I
Yeah,
think, um, there's just so much happening right now for numbing. And another thing you hit the nail on the head on is nutrition and what you're feeding your mind. You've got, I mean, the media purge is so incredibly important, because if you just take an audit one day, watch your news, but with a pad of paper, write down the number of stories that are positive and give you encouragement, and the number of stories that are twisted towards negativity and giving you fear.
yeah,
Is this one fueling me, or is it designed to cause fear? So large a percent of that is fear. In fact, I'd say on most of them, it's 100%. So, like, I'm always into this. Do an audit. You don't have to believe anything I say. Just take one day and do an audit on how
yeah,
you feel after social media. Do an audit on how you feel after you do the media. Do an audit on how you feel on X, Y, and Z. If it's not largely in favor of moving the needle in terms of your positivity, the way you're fueling your mind, dump it. And I have spent, some people don't know this. I'm on Facebook. I respond all the time. Instagram. Um, but I have systems for those. I'm not just willy nilly. And the
yeah,
thing is like, for me, I've curated those. I like Facebook. The only people I see, the only thing I see is folks like you or someone who's putting out something that's like, hey, let's think about this. And they have these, just, it's all positive or growth mindset. So you can actually be engaged in those. A lot of people cut it out totally. And I'm like, well, it's an incredible tool. And I'm connecting with a lot of men through the
Right.
brotherhood, and I'm not giving that up. But there's ways to control your environment that will actually move you in the right direction. And then you'll start to see and you'll start to identify all the things that you and I are talking about and we're striving so hard for. And, that's why with brotherhood, I'm actually really focused in on events, because I'm like, even if I can get a guy in front of me or in front of the right people and surrounded right with the right people, we can make a big, big difference. And they will snap and see,
Yeah.
like, whoa, eyes open. What do these guys have that's different than what I have? Like, why are they so enamored with their wives?
Yeah.
Because guys, I hate to tell you, we have the same issues in our marriage that you do. We just handle them completely differently.
Right.
And that's meant no judgment to anybody. The only person who can judge you is you and your God. I mean, it's like, really listen and pay attention to what's going on, and understand the deeper emotions going on. I mean, I could go on and on.
Yeah.
I'm just so driven to, like, that snap, that, I call it a Mack truck moment. The moment you get smacked by something huge, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. I had that in my life. I'm so thankful that I had that moment where I got hit by that Mack truck, and I'm looking around going, what have I been doing? I mean, I am not a man. I'm not providing for my family's emotional needs, for their spiritual needs. I'm just working. I'm so blessed that I had that happen to me. And that's the drive here, because I want every guy to get hit upside the head with reality of, there's so much more for you. And guys like
I agree
you,
with
like,
it. I think I call it this, like the Matrix, dude. Like you see all the ones and zeros now. Actually, how things are working and how things
yeah,
are guided. I think to your point, dude. I love this. Like, if men can just wake up and be men, and for some reason we face it. I know you do. Like, society is not in favor of that, but we still need it. It's still there. Like, real men to stand up and just be men. Now, what does that mean? A strong man. This is where I love Jordan Peterson, where I got pulled into him. He says, he has this perspective of, I want a guy who's able to kill, but restrains from it, versus a guy who's restrained, but couldn't do it. A dangerous man, he calls it. That to me is a warrior. The warrior, called the warrior spirit in all of us, this desire to slay dragons, to fight for the people around you. Like, are you just existing? And that to me is like, I had those questions. I'm like, what is my impact? At the end of the day, am I just kind of going through life? Where did the last 10 years go? What have I done the last 5 years? How do my kids think about me? What do they say to like other parents and other kids about who I am and what I'm doing with them? Like, it's just, what is my impact? What's my legacy that I'm going to leave? All right, well, if that's the case, crap. I'm 42. I feel like I've wasted all this. I'm gonna get on it, and I'm gonna make sure that my impact is felt by people around me. And regardless, not say perfectly, or it's just an effort is what is needed. And to me, that's exciting in the sense that that can be there for men if they want to see it, if they care about that process. So what I learned then through that Enlisted program is that's part of the victim mindset. The victim mindset says that it's all happening to me, and I have no choice. That's a lie. And when I don't have anxiety attacks anymore because of the Enlisted program. We went through this process. Remember the Billy story is this process of identifying
yep.
your worst case scenario and writing it down. And this writing it down kind of airs it out and gives it some space. And it's that whole thing of like a concert in your face versus just turning it down and placing it over here. So my fear, my anxieties, I think should still be there. It keeps us honest and fresh in life. There is a real fear of my kids going across the street and getting hit by a car. I have to be consciously minded of that when they're out playing. But I'm not putting up, bubble fences and like putting them on leashes. Fear is a good thing to keep us sharp and focused, but if it is left unbridled or undealt with, it can consume us to that's the only story that you hear is the fear version of you versus, let's say, the warrior version or the hopeful version of you. It's not about rainbows and butterflies. I hope the listeners are not hearing that. That's not what we're saying. Like, real life is dirty. So there's a verse in scripture, there's two verses in scripture that I don't know why they stick off to me. They always have. Number one is, there's a story of an old guy who saves a city from a conquering army, but no one remembers him because he's poor.
Mm-hmm.
So look at money differently. Your money's ability to have an impact and influence, not for consumption, not for having things. So you, the victim mindset can save a city, but no one remembers you because you think you're Eeyore, and you don't leave that impact. So I've always, for some reason, that verse has always stuck out to me. Like, what money can and should be used for is to the impact it has on the world around us. The second verse is this also can help women and wives, but a clean, no oxen, there's a clean trough, but to have a great harvest, you need strong oxen. And the point of it is, you could have a spotless house. I could have a spotless car with no crumbs and no spilled juices and stuff on my seats. But that means I'm sacrificing having kids, right? Kids are amazing.
Right.
They're going to leave a trail behind them. I could have a clean house. I could have a spotless uniform, but that means I'm not getting in the game. And I'm like, man, that's so profound. Like, life should be messy. And us men should be willing to stand up and go into the mystery, into the unknown, maybe not knowing what to do, but I'm going to show up, I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to go through this thing. I may be dirty on the outside, but at least I lived life. At least I was a part of this thing versus, yeah, I could be unscathed and have no issues and have no bad memories and not be stabbed in the back by best friends, or the splitting from your business partner. All that stuff that we go through wouldn't exist if we're not pursuing greatness. It's the cost of living a great life. To want to be an all-star in my sport, I have to get dirty. Or I can have a great clean uniform, but I'm watching from the sidelines. And that verse has really helped kind of guide my perspective on, where I should giving my talents and my efforts and my energies, and not caring so much about trying to control everything, and my kids making messes and different things. But it's about, well, let's teach them how to live life. Let's teach them how to do this better, because maybe they don't know. Maybe you and I, guys, don't know. We're going to leave some collateral damage, but hey, we can do it better. But at least we're in the game, living the real life, face to face.
Yeah. My buddy Aaron and I were on the last podcast talking about rites of passage, and he actually has written curriculum for rites of passage for certain aids for parents to do with their kids, which I think is phenomenal, because I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, maybe we need to, and he's actually written the curriculum. He's going to be at the big event. If you're listening to this now, it probably is like next week, but
Yeah.
he's going to be talking about that. But what really hit me was the thing, like, these are really hard things they're doing. He said, and they can fail, and they have to they can come back and practice and work and train to succeed. And I started thinking about this. One, I'm a huge believer in that kids need to fail. They need to fail to learn. They need to see us failing and learning from the failure. So one thing that came, like, this thing that while you were talking kind of came to mind. The other thing is this looks different for all of you. And so I want to paint a little picture here through a story that just happened. We have a guy in the Brotherhood who's an ex-Marine, I believe, built a business, had a great thing going. COVID hit, and he's down on his luck. So he moves in with, I believe, his mother. His wife is in recession from cancer. He's got kids. I'm in contact with this guy for 2 years since the Brotherhood began. And so what does he do? He's got this toxic place that he's living because there's zero money. He's got zero money. He and his wife both went and got jobs, but they're waiting to get paid. They just relocated. They're waiting to get paid. So what would be the normal man response, current man response to do? Live in this hellhole that's nice and comfortable and free, but be mentally anguished and have the pain and suffering of someone super negative in your life and your kid's life. He says, no, I'm not even getting paid for another week for my first job. I have a good job. My wife has a good job. I'm out of the house. He took his young family with nowhere to stay and went into a pay-by-day hotel. Now, we might see that as failure. I see that as victory, because he's saying to his family, I will not stand for a negative environment. I will not stand for toxicity. We will live together on the side of the street. I will keep you safe, but I am not putting you through that. So I want you to reframe what you think, fighting the fight for your family is, because it's not always going and learning jiu-jitsu and shooting firearms and these things. I would highly suggest those things, because they kind of tap into an internal, like, primitive thing that we have that I think really moves you in the right direction.
Yeah.
But guys, don't think that it's all about, you have to be successful to meet these things that are moving you in the right direction. This guy, what he did, he took a failure and he's like, but I am not going to let that drag my family down, even if we're living in the worst of situations. And I just think there's so much to learn from that, because it's so simple for guys to hear. You and me, Jason, we own businesses where we have time to talk in the middle of the day. We're not working for somebody else. Yeah, but you guys, you have time to spend on this. You can pay for a program that you can get trained. That's an excuse. And there's guys out there crushing it with zero resources. And guess what? They're going to have resources. So I want to tell that story, because I don't want anybody making those excuses, because if Nick can do what he did and get through, and he's getting through, he doesn't even get paid till next Friday or this Friday.
That's nuts. Kudos to him. Yeah. That's awesome, dude.
But on the other end, he's got an army of men behind him, because he's tapped in for 2 years to the Brotherhood, and he's been messaging guys, and he gets it. So what has he done? He's built an army of men behind him he didn't even know would come to the table when it was time to come to the table, because he just like puts it out there. Hey guys, this is what I'm going through. And then I'm getting message from him and other guys, and and people are going to take care of people. But when you step up like a man, when you step into that, what Jason is talking about here, there's a whole new level of thing that can happen in your life. And I just want that for every guy, no matter where you're at, no matter what your history is.
To me, what you just said, Scott, maybe that's the essence of it. Maybe the essence of it is man's job is to step into the unknown, not a female's job. And not not putting down them, because they're equally as awesome as we are. But maybe our job as men is to do exactly what you just said, to step up into the unknown, and to use the thing that I know you use, and I use it a lot, like the whole bison thing of walking into the storm, facing the storm, getting through it. Maybe that's the essence of what a man should do. And look what he did. He protected his family. He was a protector of his garden. And he understood that environment matters more so than anything else. Growth mindset matters more so than anything else to me. And I really hold true to that my season right now, I'm a dad. I get X number of years to shape and form my kids' character, how they'll respond in life, their ability to be successful. I'm responsible for. Obviously, my wife too, but for men, my season is that. So I will make sacrifices, because that's the higher priority. I'm not going to necessarily travel 1,000 weekends a year, because my job is my kids. My job is to relish in being a dad and relish in those interactions, and to spend time fostering and caring for them. The season will change when they're gone, and then maybe I can do things that maybe I care more about, and do a job that I care more about, or XYZ. But then that story speaks. Maybe that's the kind of the climax of this podcast, Scott, was look what he did. He protected his family. Words matter. And his season right now is his kids. So I'm going to do whatever I can to protect them and give them the life that they need. To me, that's no better example of men stepping up into the unknown, into the mysterious, into the dark, and facing whatever's going to face. But no man is an army. You got to surround yourself with people who are like-minded, because you're going to be like them. And maybe if he didn't have us, then he would have been mentally strong to make those decisions that ultimately going to put him in a better life. So like
Yeah.
your brotherhood matters, who you're around and who you're letting in.
Well, it's really encouraging. You know, you don't know what is falling. I just do want to say he reached out to me, even I think it was today, and he's like, "Look, I want to give back already." He's like, I want to give back," and I'm like, "No, this is your season for receiving. Receiving is really hard. This is your
Yeah.
season for receiving. Anybody who helped you in whatever way they helped you are just in a different stage right now. There's going to be a stage in your life as a man where you are the giver for someone else to receive." And I said, "That's not today. That is not this week. It's not this month. So it might be 30 years from now." And I think that's one thing that we have to put away our pride. And I'm not saying he was prideful. He just has that heart. I want to give back already. You know, is there another man who needs help or whatever it is? I'm like, just take care of your family. But this is the big thing, is for men to be in a place where they can receive when they need to receive and give when they need to give. That's a real man. That's a real man. I talk a lot about vulnerability, the growth that happens through vulnerability, the masculinity that actually can come through
Yeah.
vulnerability.
It's just
And
being honest. I think
yeah,
vulnerability is just being honest with yourself and your current situation. That to me is what
yeah,
vulnerable means. I'm just honest. Hey, I'm feeling this.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I really appreciate your viewpoint into a lot of these things. It's been it's been a blast talking to you. I
Yeah, I'm
think
sure
we can.
we can talk all day in this stuff. But I
Yeah,
want to leave with this, Scott, if I could. Like
please.
I always do this on these conversations to leave some tangible, like, all right, you can do this right now and start making an
Mm-hmm.
impact. Number one would be the 3-win thing, the bookends. So the last part of the day, all the clients I work with, they're required to do this. They send me a text. What's my wins for today? What's my wins for tomorrow? That impact, that will shift you. That will literally imprint on your personality hopefulness, gratitude, and growth, which to me, what we need. We get in trouble as men when we're not doing those things, when we're not growing
Mm-hmm.
and having an attitude, like that gratitude piece of it. Like we get in trouble real quick when we're not doing that. So that'd be the first thing, is just to implement the 3-win system, because you can do it in a moment. You can do it right now, but the piece of it as at night matters because of that imprinting on the personality. The second thing is um, self-evaluate. Let's say that, Scott. Let's say, hey, take some inventory on, am I a person willing to grow, or am I clinging to that victim mindset that I don't have choice, that it's happening to me? Because the reality is, we have only things we can control is our attitude and our effort. So literally, I teach my kids, my clients, but I teach my kids the same thing. The only thing you can control is your attitude and your effort to things. Literally everything else is outside of your control, meaning you can't control
100%.
it. It's going to happen. So am I a person that's going to make excuses and victim, this is happening to me and I have no choice and I'm going to complain about it? Or am I a person that causes movement, that just steps up and, well, how can I make this better? We are designed to solve problems as men. Are we doing that? So the wins, and then self inventory on, hey, am I a person that is victim, or am I a growth mindset individual? And I think only the person, you can answer that for yourself on who you are. It will be found though in language, whether the language you're telling yourself or the language you're speaking out loud. It's going to be found in your language, what kind of person you are, what kind of man you're trying to become.
Yeah. So the 3 wins at night, I've been doing that. It's incredible. And then I phrase it a little differently. I say, okay, what are the top my top priorities tomorrow that I'm going to crush? It's very, I mean, it's the same outcome, right? But I know I do it in an app on my phone because it pops up every day and it's like, oh, this is what you need to do. But I know the power of written word. So I've made a decision, and I hope some of you will just kind of grasp a hold of what this list Jason gave, because it's phenomenal. I hope you will just take action and do it like right now, like just literally. So I've already taken a note. I'm going to get a piece of paper or a pad of paper, and that's going to be beside my bed, because I think that imprinting writing those things down is really huge. I type them, which I think is okay, but I really kind of I like to put my phone away before bed. So I want to move that a little later in the night. And I think paper and pen's the way to do that. So I really appreciate that, brother. People can find you on our show notes, but you're Jason Barron, by the way, you guys. It's super easy to spell. It's the way it sounds. You're in Ohio. You have CrossFit Intent, which I know is a phenomenal facility. And man, if you want mental help, if you want story work help, anything that Jason has, Jason has it's touched you really should reach out to him. I know the impact that this man, I know the tools that this man has put into his life. And those are the people that we've got to latch onto. In fact, you all need to know, I'm begging Jason to make a way to come to the big event, because I want to surround myself and other men with people like Jason. That is so incredibly important to me. These aren't people you just find anywhere. And so for me, it's the intentionality of doing things so I know I can get in an area and spend some fun time, some hard time, some real time with men who are going to, light my wick and help me grow. And so,
doing the work.
If you haven't done that and you're feeling like, I don't think I measure up, this is the final thing I'm going to say, because I've had men reach out to me. I am scared to death to come to that event. And hey, guys, I'll tell you what, I've never rolled jiu-jitsu. I'm scared. I got injuries up the wazoo. I'm going to do it. I am scared to death about that. But that's the positions we need to put ourselves in, because we come out victorious. Even if we fail, even if I fail at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I've won because I've stepped into that ring or that mat. I've done something that scares me, and I've done it with men who are going to challenge me and are going to hold me to the fire. And it doesn't matter whether I'm good at it or not. It's just the matters that I'm doing it. And that's what I want for every man. So if you find yourself an excuse, get your butt into an event. We're going to have more of them, and we're going to make them more accessible, more affordable. But this one, I intentionally made it hard. I intentionally made it expensive because I wanted to deliver a ridiculous experience for men. Every penny's going back into everybody coming. But be watching, because this is the movement. Getting people like Jason and me in your circle, getting people like that are on this podcast, like Aaron Guyette and Matt Chenard, and all these guys, get Josh and all these guys surrounded by you, and all we're going to do is go up together. Jason, thank you so much for coming on today.
Dude, Scott, it's been a blast, dude. I love it, man. Thank you very much. And I'll give you there's a link that people can get a hold of me with. We'll put in the show notes as far as an outreach kind of thing. But end of the day, if it's just a conversation, if it's just a, feedback, to me, is honestly, I didn't come out here to build my business. I come out here to just to share passion about helping men become better and helping them to redefine winning. What winning should be like in our eyes as far as what it is. And it's not wins and losses. It's stepping up and just showing up. And that's a big deal for us. So thanks, brother. Love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Make sure you do that thing I say every time. Go subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, because that's how we get more men into this thing. And then if you're in the Brotherhood of Fatherhood group, good for you. If you're not, join. Hey, I'm going to put this announcement out there. We're going to be doing something different so we can take you out of Facebook if you don't want to be in there, and more intentionally actually see stuff instead of having to live with Facebook's algorithm. So that's my promise to you. It's just going to take some time for us to get that nailed down. So be watching for that. I'm really excited. And you guys just go and crush it today.
Thank you for listening to the Brotherhood of Fatherhood podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends, your family, and follow us on social media. If you are a father, make sure you join our Facebook group, the Brotherhood of Fatherhood. Hit the subscribe button and tune in next time for more podcasts from the Brotherhood of Fatherhood.